In this video, I'm going to explain to you exactly how a bullion dealer works, the guys who sell you your gold and silver. I'm going to go over all the processes that we use in order to make sure that you get exactly what you paid for. Now, I've been in the bullion industry for over 5 years as both a customer within the industry, and now we're partnered with an independent bullion dealer as well. I'm making this because I believe it's important to understand how the industry works in order for you to be a better customer. Now, a business is only as good as its customers, and I want to educate you as much as possible so that you have the correct expectations, you understand how the industry works so that we both can achieve our goals. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Steph. I'm from alethels.com, and what we do is help people, businesses, and super funds invest over $50,000 into precious metals. I make these videos completely for free for everybody else so that you guys are more knowledgeable about the industry, you're more likely to purchase bullion, and you're more likely to do it safely, securely, and more knowledgeably. I hope you enjoy the video. Now, in order to know what a bullion dealer does, you need to know what a bullion dealer is. Essentially, a bullion dealer is the final or tail end of the life cycle of the precious metals industry. What bullion dealers do is they purchase metals from either a wholesaler or directly from a refinery and sell that to the end consumer. Obviously, we're exposed to price risks and all that kind of stuff because prices change all the time. Bullion dealers ensure that the product is pure and that it is denoted and correctly weighs what it is denoted as, whether it's 10 ounce, 5 ounce, a kilo, whatever, right? Bullion dealers purchase either directly from refineries or from wholesalers, and they use booking softwares and derivatives to book in prices in order to stay afloat. Now, those wholesalers or refiners will purchase those goods directly from mining companies that mine it out in WA and all other states and all that good stuff. Now, bullion dealers are absolutely essential because they keep both the customer and the refiners and suppliers in check and making sure that everything is happening legally. We're selling exactly what we're displaying on our website or what they're displaying on their website. That the product is pure, that it is the same weight that it should be, all that good stuff. That we're following AML and all the other regulations in order to stay afloat or to stay within the regulations, especially with corporations and super funds. They handle all of that stuff. Now, how do bullion dealers source inventory? Bullion dealers have two options when it comes to sourcing inventory. They can either purchase from a wholesaler, which is somebody or an entity who specialize in selling these products to the bullion dealers themselves, or directly from refiners. Now, generally, whenever bullion dealers receive products, obviously they receive them in secure shipping and all that, like really tight knit shipping stuff from reputable logistics companies. Sometimes via specialized logistics companies. When bullion dealers receive a large quantity of stock, they'll receive it from Armor Guard or something like that. That way, they can ensure all the product they have received actually turns up nice and safely. Once the product has been received, they will be tested to ensure that the purity and weight is correct and make sure that it is of like the depicted amount on the bar itself. Another thing that bullion dealers have to worry about, especially this is make or break. This is what separates the great bullion dealers who stay in business for long periods of time and are reputable versus amateur bullion dealers who go bankrupt and lose all their money. And it is this big thing called price exposure and hedging. And what I mean by this is imagine if you've got a t-shirt and every day, every second, the t-shirt changes price for you when you want to source it. It changes cost. Now, this is the exact same thing with bullion. Imagine if you bought this shirt yesterday, it costed you $30, and now the next day it costs you $50. The day after that, it changes to $20. It would be very difficult to figure out and sort out what to sell your customers via price, in order to make sure you stay in business and make a premium or profit to stay in business and keep the lights on. This is where hedging tools come in. Bullion dealers, they have to worry about their net position, right? And by net position, it as simply as possible, it means how many kilos they've bought from a wholesaler or refiner, and then how many they've sold to a customer. If I were a bullion dealer, if I were a bullion dealer, if I sold a customer a an ounce of gold, right? Let's say I sold a customer an ounce of gold. My net position is negative 1 ounces. I am in finance terms short. And the reason I am short is because I have sold an ounce of gold. I am now exposed to the price because I have to go and purchase that ounce from a wholesaler or refiner in order to fill that ounce to that end customer. Now, what happens if the price goes down? If the price goes down, I've sold to my customer already. I've booked in a price. Say it's $5,000 per ounce of gold. I've sold it to him for $5,000, right? If the next day the price of gold goes down to 3,000, an extreme example, 3,000, I can now buy that ounce for $3,000, fulfill it, and pocket the 2 grand difference, which sounds fantastic, right? Oh, why wouldn't you just do this? The difference comes when gold appreciates. Now, in this scenario, what happens if gold goes up? If I've sold it for $5,000 and the next day gold goes up to $7,000, I now have to buy that same ounce, the very same ounce, the next day to fulfill this customer for $7,000. I have lost 2 grand because I was exposed. I had a net position on gold when I sold that ounce and it was negative. I was short. When you're short, you want the price to go down. You're exposed to the metal's change in price. As bullion dealers, you don't want to be overexposed to the metal price because if you become overexposed to the metal price, you can be bankrupted like that. Whether it depends on the direction. The opposite is true if I purchase metal, right? If I buy it back from a customer or if I buy it directly from a refiner or wholesaler, if I'm a bullion dealer, then I am long. My net position is positive, right? In finance terms, I am long. I want the price to go up. Let's just say I bought it from a wholesale for $5,000. I've bought an ounce. My net position becomes plus 1 ounces. I am long for gold in finance terms, in the fancy schmancy finance terms. I now want the price to go up. If the price goes up to $7,000, I can now, not including fees, sell this ounce, this very same ounce, to a customer for $7,000 and I can pocket the 2 grand difference. The problem comes if gold goes down by $2,000 to 3,000, I've now bought this ounce for $5,000. If I sell it to an end consumer for 3,000, I've just lost money. 2 grand to be specific. I am exposed to the metal. I've got a net exposure, either positive when I'm long or negative when I'm short. Positive when I buy and negative when I sell. As bullion dealers, when bullion dealers are operating businesses, they constantly have to look at their net exposure. And it's a very important part of the business. It's the majority of the business is worrying about net exposure. And this is where something called hedging solutions comes in. Some wholesalers offer it, refinery accounts offer it. There's ways of around it. So a hedging solution solves this problem. If I sell an ounce of gold to a customer at $5,000, including my premium, we'll say my premium is 5,050. If I sell that ounce for 5,050, I can then go and use my hedging solution, whether it's a bot or a derivative contract. I can do it on the exchange, very complicated stuff. To put it simply, when I sell, the moment I sell, I can book in a price with the refiner or the wholesaler and buy it at that moment. That way, my net exposure goes from -1 after selling back up to 0 the moment I buy it from my refiner. And the great thing is, I will always charge my customers slightly more than what the refiner charges me or the wholesaler charges me. And I can pocket the small difference. In most bullion dealing cases, on a 5,000 bar of gold, they'll only make $25, but their net exposure is 0. They're not exposed to the spot risk. So this is the most important aspect when it comes to bullion dealing because imagine how difficult it is to keep track of and to stay in business when your stock is constantly changing value, especially when you're buying it at changing values all the time. This is why bullion dealing is a very difficult industry to get into. This is why it's You need to trust professionals who know what they're doing, who have been in the industry for years and years, in order to ensure that you are buying the correct product at the correct price that is not ridiculously inclusive of premiums, in order to make sure that you get delivery of goods on time so that you don't send money to a bullion dealer who is using their hedging solution or mismanaging their hedging or their price exposure, because you can totally, this has happened before plenty of times where customers would send money, large amounts of money, to bullion dealers who have been irresponsible, who don't manage their hedging, who are overexposed to the spot price and go bankrupt the moment price swings in the opposite direction. I don't want that to happen to you guys. That's why it's important to know exactly how the industry works so that you can trust reputable dealers like the one I'm partnered with, in order to ensure that you actually get your stuff and you actually get the investments and the hard-earned money that you paid for. Now that we know how bullion dealers counteract and properly manage uh, price exposure through a hedging solution with either a refiner or a wholesaler, understanding and calculating their net position, what about physical stock? After bullion dealers have booked prices, they actually have to order that specific product. Typically, within this industry, bullion dealers will use the hedging solution and they will roll through oldest hedged prices to newest hedged prices in order to better reflect uh, the product they've sold, because you want to sell or purchase at the price you sold earliest. That way, it's about cash flow management and all of that good stuff. You want to make sure there's enough cash within the business as well in order to properly buy and then sell that physical product. Whenever bullion dealers receive the product, there's multiple ways of testing it. Now, the bullion dealer that I'm partnered with, what they use is called XRF, an XRF, which is something like a $40,000 or $60,000 radiation gun. It essentially sprays the bar with X-rays, and when it reflects back, it goes through the bar and reflects back. And whatever material is in front of that XRF, it'll show up on the screen, denoting what percentage it is. With bullion, you want to see the four nines, right? Four nines, either quadruple nine AG, which is the uh, periodic table on the periodic table denoting silver, or AU, which is gold. Bullion dealers don't make money off the spot price. If they did, they're exposed to the spot price. Spot price meaning the changing price of the gold and silver itself, which is internationally recognized and is determined by financial contracts on an exchange, which is not really real. The two markets, a common misconception in within the customer base, is that the physical market plays a direct hand in the exchange market or the paper market, right? The paper market, I say paper because it's not really real. If you've got ounces of gold on the exchange, they're not really yours. There's hundreds of paper contracts for every ounce of real gold and every ounce of real silver. This is why it is important to buy physical gold and silver. The exchanges, just like the fractional reserve banking we see today with banks, overinflate the amount of ounces or paper in the paper markets and then lend those out in order to make more money. It's literally fractional reserve banking within these markets. It's important to not be exposed to the spot price. When we source this product, I can bullion dealers will order it from their wholesaler or refiner. The refiner or wholesaler will use the earliest booked prices to charge that bullion dealer. Once the refiners and wholesalers receive the entirety of the funds, obviously there will be down payments and all that kind of stuff. That's why bullion dealers expect payment relatively quickly in order to manage their cash. Cash in a business is like oxygen. So if a bullion dealer does not receive cash, they won't be able to front the funds in order to book those prices in with a refiner or wholesaler. That's why cash flow is extremely important in this industry. So once the bullion dealer has paid entirely of that amount, the refiner or the wholesaler will send the goods. The bullion dealer will test it and ensure that it is of pure quality. And then they will go on and sell it and fulfill it to the customers that had booked in the price the earliest. So we've spoken exactly about how bullion dealers stay in business, how they manage prices, especially since stock fluctuates all the time. How do they actually make money? Essentially, what I said before in regards to the hedge, whenever a bullion dealer sells a product to a customer and then goes and buys it from a refiner wholesaler, or if it's a buyback from another customer, they will typically sell that product for more than what they bought it for and then pocket the premium. Assuming this bullion dealer is making no money off spot exposure, meaning their net position is zero, they will make money off the active selling and rotation and selling of physical stock. So I'll give you an example, a direct example. If a gold ounce was worth $5,000 on the open market, bullion dealers will typically charge 5,050, for example. 25 of those dollars will be a fee uh, charged by refiners or the wholesaler. And then the other $25 will be charged to the end customer by the bullion dealer. Now, what you've noticed is that bullion dealing margins are absolutely terrible. They're horrible. Gold margins, gold is one of our worst products, to be completely transparent with you. Gold is typically anywhere from 0.5% to 1% margin. Silver is a little bit higher depending on the size of the bar and the product, typically from 1 to 3%. Now, as you've noticed, we need to sell a lot of stock and a lot of product in order to stay in business and keep the lights on. So typically customers don't understand how this works. So I get customers all the time coming in, especially with lower value orders, asking for discounts. Um, this is not because, obviously you're going to fight for a great price, which is 100% fair enough. But it's not from a place of greed or anything. It's a place of ignorance. It's a place from ignorance, right? So it comes from ignorance, purely because they don't understand how the industry's margins work. If the current spot price was $5,000, meaning I'm selling it for 5,050, if I were to give somebody a $250 discount, which on a $5,000 bar isn't that much, I've essentially just given them $200. 5,050 minus 250 is 4,800, right? The current spot price is 5,000. So they could immediately, in that moment, sell me that bar. If I were a bullion dealer, sell me that bar for $5,000. I've just handed them 200 bucks. So in this industry, discounts aren't really possible. Another thing we've got to worry about is as the price of products appreciate, the percentage margin actually decreases. If gold goes from $3,000 an ounce to $5,000, the premium is still $50, inclusive of refinery fees and then the fee that he charges to stay in business. From $3,000 to $5,000, the margin gets smaller and smaller as prices appreciate. So that's another thing we've got to factor in. So in the bullion industry, margins are absolutely tiny. For a bullion dealer to be absolutely reputable and only make money off of selling bullion, they need to sell a metric shitload of it, a load of it, a crap ton of the stuff in order to stay in business and pay the bills. So this is why you need to buy from a reputable bullion dealer, because a lot of bullion dealers out there will take the risk on spot price and they will go bankrupt and gamble with your funds and lose them. So you need a reputable bullion dealer doing lots of volume, running a tight ship, managing and making sure that everything is done correctly. That's why we've chosen the bullion dealer that we've chosen, and that's why I believe we will continue to stay with the bullion dealer we've chosen. I hope this video was helpful. I hope it was eye-opening and informative on how the bullion industry works. I hope you can take this now, and hopefully as now a customer, you can go forth and purchase more knowledgeably and make sure that you do it more safely, and that you choose bullion dealers that you buy from more effectively in order to preserve and prevent your wealth from being, irresponsibly handled by other private businesses. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll catch you later.